I remember one time we were driving through destroyed roads in the north of Gaza, and I saw a young boy. He looked about 6, 7 years old, and he was standing on top of a pile of rubble, and I could see him trying to move heavy chunks of concrete. Now I was wondering what this boy was looking for, only to be shocked when he said, "My mum." So when I arrived in Gaza, I cannot describe to you the oh my God, I'm emotional now. All right, here we go. I spent the last 8 weeks in Gaza documenting the support that SaveTheChildren have been delivering to the people impacted by the war. When I arrived in Gaza, I was just overwhelmed by the level of destruction that was around me. I mean, absolutely everything was completely flattened. I saw no building standing. I arrived in Gaza during the pause in hostilities, so early February, and there were so many children running around with no shoes, climbing on top of the rubble, laughing and playing, and I remember thinking, how are children smiling? How are they finding the strength to smile in what looked so far from normal? There's a strength there, there's a quiet defiance. People have an unwavering faith in God. They just dream of what Gaza would look like after the war. They still have hopes, they still have dreams, they believe that better days are ahead. There were so many people that I met that just shared horrific stories. They smile and they find the strength to keep going. For weeks I had spent asking families how was it like living through the war, and they were all describing this terror and this fear when the bombs would drop and you hear airstrikes close by. But honestly, nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for how it would feel like when you actually live through it. So I was there on March the 18th, and when I heard the sounds of the explosions and the ambulance sirens and the chaos outside, it was in the middle of the night, it was around 2 a.m, and I just curled up like a ball. I froze. I was unbelievably terrified. I didn't know whether to call my family to say my goodbyes. It's a night that I will never forget. I will never forget. And for weeks, families had been describing that terror, but that terror has just been a constant thing, and it continues to be a constant thing for them. The level of need in Gaza is beyond anything that I could describe. Everything in Gaza is pretty much destroyed. Homes, schools, hospitals, the very fabric of life has been destroyed. A month into the blockade, there was no more flour in the market, no bread, and the price of flour, if it was available, had more than tripled. I was meeting a lot of families that were taking desperate measures to feed their children, to survive hunger. I met one mother that was telling me when they had no access to food, when there was no flour, she was feeding her children animal feed. So the stuff that you would give to birds, to goats, to horses, and she would try to make some sort of dough with that, some sort of bread that she could cut up into pieces and feed her 4 children. And in terms of medical supplies, nothing was entering Gaza since the 2nd of March. We were seeing a lot of children that were sadly dying of preventable diseases like dehydration, like diarrhea, and all sorts of complications that, had they have had access to food or the right medication, they would have survived. And the treatment for those diseases are just right across the border, in trucks waiting to go in, but they're not entering. Save the Children has been operating in Gaza for decades, and we offer a range of services, including healthcare services, nutrition programs, education programs, child-friendly spaces, and these services became a lifeline for people that have been impacted by the war. So, for instance, we were providing a mother and child bonding session, and these were spaces for mothers and their children to bond, to get them closer together. During the war, mothers had hardly any time to spend with their children because they've been so busy trying to survive. One mother was telling me that she didn't have time during the whole 16 months until there was the pause in place. During that 16 months, she didn't have time to hug her child. And in these bonding sessions, that was the only time, and it was her first time hugging her child. The war has had a devastating impact on the mental health of children in Gaza. Parents have been telling me that their children now wet themselves, they can't control it. A lot of them have nightmares. A lot of them don't speak anymore. A lot of them are just constantly frightened. They're afraid of physically going outside. Dodging a bullet has become the day-to-day routine for children. Sadly, picking up the remains of loved ones, picking up the body parts of loved ones is now what it means to be a child in Gaza. They have seen things no child should ever see. I remember one time we were driving through destroyed roads in the north of Gaza, and I saw a young boy. He looked about 6, 7 years old, and he was standing on top of a pile of rubble, and I could see him trying to move heavy chunks of concrete. Now, I was wondering what this boy was looking for, only to be shocked when he said, "My mum." His words were so raw. This mother was telling me how her 12-year-old boy had to pick up the remains of a dead baby after that baby was flown onto a tree by an explosion. I met another mother that was telling me how her children were all exposed to seeing dead bodies eaten by dogs. I had asked a group of teenagers, what's your biggest fear? And one girl told me that her biggest fear was losing a limb. Now, in Gaza, that fear is not abstract, it's a reality. A lot of children are sadly losing limbs, and multiple limbs for some. I met one mother who was telling me, during the war, our children were just waiting their turn to die. When the war resumed, her words just keep echoing in my mind. There was one girl that I met in a Save the Children education program. This girl, she's 9 years old. She asked her dad during the war, promise me I won't die. This girl got injured from a shrapnel wound that has completely damaged a part of her skull. Now, the skin and that area of her head has been completely destroyed. No hair grows out of that area, and the only thing that's protecting the soft tissue around her brain is a bandage. And this girl survived. This girl walks, she talks, she's accessing our education program, and she's so attached to her dad because she thinks he kept his promise. She didn't die. This girl dreams of becoming a teacher, and when I asked her, why do you want to become a teacher? She said, I want to teach everyone how to rebuild Gaza. I met a lot of children that were visibly malnourished. You could see that fear had aged them. They had responsibilities that no child should have. For instance, where to find food for their families, where to find water to drink. All of their language is shaped by war. Their language is all about survival. What's the best way to dodge a bullet? Where's the best place to hide if there was an airstrike? Many children have lost family members in unthinkable ways. They've witnessed their family members being torn to pieces. But many of them dream. They believe that Gaza, they could rebuild Gaza. And I don't know why I did this, but I took a selfie stick with me to Gaza. I thought, I'm taking a selfie stick and I'm going to take group shots wherever I get the opportunity. Everyone in Gaza, I noticed, at least during the pause, they loved getting involved in the group photos. They loved taking pictures. At first, I thought that was, it's all for a bit of fun and it's all very light-hearted, but I didn't realise the deep meaning behind it until I spoke to a child. And this child knew that I was going back to the UK, and he said to me, show everyone that you know that I was here. I didn't realise that the people in Gaza love taking pictures, or at least the people that I met, they love taking pictures because they want to show that they existed. They want their memory to live on. And when this young boy told me, show everyone that you know that I was here, I just realised that it wasn't just about survival. It was about his life, and his life matters. I think one of the hardest things during my time in Gaza was hearing children telling me that their life holds no value to the rest of the world. A lot of them didn't understand why they were suffering the way that they were suffering. They were very aware that they were living through a war, but they didn't understand why has this war gone as far as it has gone. They didn't understand. Coming back home just felt like stepping into another world. The UK just seemed so peaceful. Everything was just in order. It wasn't loud by the sound of drones. There's no sounds of airstrikes here, which was constant. It felt weird to be back home. And the choice of food that I have, the access of food that I have, simple things that I just did not have the luxury in Gaza. I just was overwhelmed by just the choices that we have here and how we take it for granted here. And even more so, I'm finding it very, very hard to reconcile all of this knowledge with the fact that my government, the UK government, has been complicit in this war. The UK government supply arms to the Israeli government that rain terror on the civilians in Gaza. And I've just found that really, really difficult. Innocent children are dying in staggering numbers in Gaza. They are dying from preventable diseases, not just from the bombs. They are dying in horrific circumstances. They're losing limbs, they're getting burnt, they're losing family members, they're being blown up into pieces, and my government has been complicit in this. I find that really, really difficult to accept. Social media has allowed us to connect with people in Gaza. A lot of people in Gaza are watching what the world is doing to try and stop this war. And for a lot of them, it gives them hope, it gives them strength when they see people speaking up about the atrocities that are happening in Gaza. When they see people calling for a ceasefire, it gives them hope that maybe the world will listen. Maybe the war will end. Maybe that they will get the chance to try and rebuild their lives again. When I was in Gaza and I was seeing social media posts from my family or my friends, you know, doing a run for Save the Children. A lot of people that I know were taking part in the London Marathon, and some people that I know were running for Save the Children. And I cannot tell you the feeling that it gave me when I was in Gaza and I was seeing their efforts in trying to raise money for Save the Children so that some of this money can be used to support children and their families in Gaza. It just gives you this sense of hope that humanity exists, that people care, that we're not forgotten. That's how a lot of people in Gaza felt every time that they would see their news feeds that people in the UK or around the world were taking part in protests or holding up the Palestinian flag. It just gave them this sense of hope, this sense of that their life mattered, that people care. What we need is a permanent ceasefire. We need unrestricted aid access. Whatever we have been delivering during the pause in fighting, it was just a drop in the ocean of what's actually needed in Gaza. Aid has never been more urgent. It's literally a life or death situation right now. We need to stop this war. We need to put pressure on our governments to stop this war. This cannot continue. For 8 weeks, I've been asking families, children and their families, if you could send one message to the world, what would it be? And their answer has been really simple. We love life. We want to live. Gaza is not only a place where innocent children are being killed, it's a graveyard for our humanity.